Durbania. I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
And we are going to spoiler talk Ben-Hur, the new one. Okay, so what did you think?
Well, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it overall. I didn't see the first half of the old one, but I did see the second half of it. And honestly, there was a lot of stuff in the original one that I liked better personally.
Yeah.
But I just felt like because there was better character development there. Now, the action in this one, obviously way better because they can do that stuff way better. Except for there is a fact from the original one. One of the guys who got knocked off of their chariot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he actually, it wasn't planned the way it happened, and you see him go. He actually died while filming that scene, and that studio paid the family $1 million to be able to keep that footage,
which is a lot back then.
Yeah,
but then
back
it's
in
horrible
1959. I know it's just really sad because now we're watching a real death on screen.
And what I didn't like,
watch it.
I'm watching the 1959 one, to do that reading way too much into and to get ready for this movie and stuff like that. So I knew that fact.
Yeah.
And I hate that I was looking for it.
I know. And then you see it happen, you go, oh!
But when it does happen, it's like, that's not a dummy. Like, you saw it. Like, and it's just like,
it's a person.
Oh, crud. I just watched someone die. That's what's really hard about watching that original one in that one scene. Like, you know that's a real person, and it's really hard. This one, it's CGI.
Fact, if you didn't know it.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the movie?
Well, I liked it. It had a lot of good things working for it, but it had a lot of negative things. What's really hard with the negative things, and I said this in my spoiler-free, is because the thing that was a challenge for me was separating this new one from the original.
Me too.
Because one of the positives with the new one was that it was its own movie.
Yes.
It was not a shot-for-shot remake.
No, yeah, they did alter it. Well,
it's cool
they
because...
They altered it enough that it was different.
Yeah. It was the same story. They just told the exact same story with the same points differently.
Yes.
And I thought... And one of the things that was different, that I kind of liked the way they did it in the 2016 version versus the 1959 version. So in the 1959 version, where Ben-Hur loses everything. So the whole plot of this, they're in Jerusalem, time of Jesus, Ben-Hur, super rich. He had a Roman brother who basically grew up in the house with him and all that fun stuff. Roman brother, kind of his quest for identity, goes off to Rome, joins the legions, then comes back. Now they have different points of view, and this begins the separation.
Yeah.
So what was interesting to me in the 1959 version, what started everything, where Ben-Hur, rich guy, loses everything and his family loses everything, was there was a new governor coming into town.
Pontius Pilate.
It was not in the 1959 version.
Oh, it wasn't?
Yeah, no, they did it more biblically accurate in the 1959 version because I don't think Pilate was there for very long when Jesus was crucified.
Okay.
I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, be nice to me in the comments and just let me know. But anyway... So this governor was rolling in the 1959 one, and they all went up on the roof of their nice little mansion to watch it. And Ben-Hur's sister was leaning over, and there was a loose tile on the roof, and she hit the tile falls, it spooks the horse of the governor falls off, he gets hurt, and the soldiers storm the house, and Masala, being mad that Ben-Hur won't name names to give up zealots and stuff like that, instead of defending the family that loved him and raised him, just threw them all under the bus.
Yeah.
And that became the big hurt for Ben-Hur. The thing that I thought was slightly more powerful in this version was some of the zealots ended up in Ben-Hur's mansion because Ben-Hur's sister was trying to take care of them because they got injured.
Yeah.
Ben-Hur, being a merciful man, takes care of one of them.
Helps nurse one of them back to health.
And then when Pontius Pilate is riding into town, the zealot sneaks out of his room with a bow and arrow and shoots at Pontius Pilate, which I thought kind of raised the stakes a bit, That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't see that part in the original one because the movie is really long and I came in at the second half. But for me, I don't know. I mean, one way or the other, they were going to thought it was going to be an attempt on the governor's or whoever it was life. And so, but... The thing that was weird is Judah Ben-Hur, he told the guy to run. And then he took the fall when he found out
He told the zealot to run,
Yeah, he told the zealot to run, and then he took the fall when he thought his mom and sister were going to get injured because of it.
Oh, yeah. And that was also kind of interesting. It's weird because it's like, both versions have a strength there. In the 1959 version, the strength is the spite of Masala. That it's sheer spite that Ben-Hur would not help him, because in the 1959 version, Masala was like, no, the spotlight's on me. And if I do a good job, then I could live in infamy and, all that stuff. And so when Ben-Hur wouldn't help him, it was more, pardon the term, it was butthurt. And there was something powerful about it, because humans are petty.
Yes.
And I thought it really showed that. Ben-Hur would not help him advance his career, and out of sheer just anger and pettiness, he threw them all under the bus. And there's something powerful to that. But there was also something powerful in this new one when literally it was a zealot that Ben-Hur tried to help, who climbs up on Ben-Hur's roof and shoots an arrow. And Ben-Hur's like, I told you I was a man for peace. Do you have any idea what you've done?
And honestly, Marsala knew it wasn't him. He did.
There was still spite,
but he knew that he was harvesting a zealot. And he's like, oh, I thought you didn't do this. I thought you didn't take sides. And there's this whole thing. He's like, oh, you were taking care of one of them. He's like, well, what do you expect to happen?
Now, I know you meant harboring a zealot, but harvesting a zealot is actually pretty funny.
Oops.
And that might be a term that I just log away forever, because that was hilarious.
You knew what I meant.
Yes. In the original one, you have the whole ship thing where Ben-Hur becomes a slave rower, where he's forced in the bowels of the ship and he's forced to be a rower. Now, one of the things that they did that was really interesting in the 1959 version, and I talk about this in my reading way too much into, is in that whole thing when the ship gets rammed and it goes down, Ben-Hur saves a Roman general. And they end up having a connection, they become friends, and that Roman general ends up naming Ben-Hur a son.
And therefore making Ben-Hur a Roman citizen.
Yes, and then, that's how Ben-Hur returns to Jerusalem, a Roman citizen.
Yeah, with no record of wrongdoing.
Yeah, and that was really kind of cool. Yeah. Now, in this 2016 version, they cut it for a very good reason.
Yeah.
They were not going to do
it would have been an extra hour to the movie.
Yeah, they're not going to do a 3-hour and 47-minute thing. They're going to get straight to the meat of this. And you know what? I respect that. And they did a good job in the 2016 version that if they were going to cut that whole storyline, which I really did enjoy in the original.
Yes.
But if they were going to cut that whole storyline, because that Roman guy never comes back.
No.
Then they did a good job cutting it. They did a good job, getting straight into the meat of it.
Yes.
And doing the whole relationship with Morgan Freeman. Which
was good, because, and how they ended up clearing him in this movie was Morgan Freeman buys his way into the chariot race because he's filthy rich and he knows Ben-Hur is going to win. He just knows
buys his way in through betting.
So he buys his way in through betting. He offers to match 6-1 the odds that people are doing. So this way, they would be stupid not to take it. And then as he's leaving, he says, oh, and my rider, he's a Jew, but you have to remove all of his past wrongdoings if he wins.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't win, chances are he's going to die. So they're like, because that's the chariot race, Roman time, they wanted everybody to die. They liked blood.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool thing. And then as they're walking away, they're like, who is it? And Marsala's standing there. He's like, oh, you know his name. And he keeps walking.
It was a great scene.
Yeah, it was a really cool scene. I liked it. It was different than the original, but that was one of the areas where it was different, but it was still okay. It was good.
Yeah, but see, that was one of the things that was just really good. There was a lot that was really good about this one. The visuals were amazing. Like, when he was a rower in this movie, they did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
And they did a good job. Like, you kind of see it in the trailer where the ship gets rammed and all that stuff happens. Like, the visuals were really good. There's this moment where Ben-Hur gets sucked underwater, and then he gets up to get a breath, and then the chain around his ankle yanks him back down.
Because he's still attached to the other guys that are on the boat.
And then the musical score in that scene is a heartbeat, and it just gets faster and faster and faster as Ben-Hur's yanking at the chain. He's trying to pull the chain, like my Batman socks. He's trying to pull the chain out of his foot, and then you felt like you were him, and you couldn't breathe. And so, like,
you could make it!
Yes, it was so good. And so they did a lot of stuff that was with that was really good. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I really liked, they did a good job establishing Ben-Hur's relationship with the racehorses.
Yes.
Like, you didn't get attached to all 4 of them, but there was like one in particular, I don't even remember his name.
He nursed it back to health, which is why Morgan Freeman's character trusted this guy who floated in on the water with chains around his ankle. This guy came in and fixed his horse, and now he has horses that can race in the games, or in the circus, as they call it.
Yes. So, yeah. So it was interesting. This movie was a little Gladiator-like.
Yeah, not Gladiator was nonstop in the circus.
That's true.
This is only maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah. But it's a good build up to that 15 minutes.
Yeah, it is.
And I really feel like this movie drew me in. So even though, and I'm not going to lie, there was parts that were slow. Yeah. But even in those parts, I still felt attached to the characters. I really wanted to know what was going on.
Well, I felt attached to the main characters, the brothers, Ben-Hur and Marsala. I was attached to Morgan Freeman's character. Not really to Pontius Pilate, but the guy who played him was good, and that was it. Yeah. I was not attached to any of the other characters. Esther, Ben-Hur's wife, I didn't care about. Yeah. His mom and his sister, I didn't care about. Esther's father. There's a bunch of people.
And the sad thing
didn't care about them.
About that is, even when you separate it from the 1959 version, the mom, sister, and wife are important characters to the development of Ben-Hur and the story and the resolution. Yes. And so the fact that we did not get attached to them, because I agree with you, I wasn't fully attached to them. That was kind of a problem, because you needed that attachment for the resolution when you got towards the end. Yeah. One of the things in the original that was incredible was whenever Jesus shows up on screen, because again, this takes place during the time of Jesus. Yes. So when Ben-Hur is first sold into slavery and he's marching with the Roman legion in chains, because of his relationship to Masala, all the soldiers truly hate Ben-Hur. Oh, yeah. They're not giving him water. And so there's this scene in the original where they're in Nazareth and they stop by this carpenter's shop and he's on it. He's just begging for water. They're feeding the animals Ben-Hur is the last person that they want to take care of. And by feeding, I mean they're giving water to the animals before they're giving it to Ben-Hur. And then Ben-Hur falls on the ground. He's like, God, help me. And then Jesus shows up. But what's cool about Jesus is I liked how they never showed you his face in the original. No, it was really cool because it actually made it a little more powerful. It did. And because it added that element of mystery to it. You know, it kind of in a way made it more sacred. It made it feel more reverent whenever he was on screen. But I don't mean that in that really cornball, preachy, cheesy way. I mean that in that, wow, that's a really good idea. They did it all because they just made it feel like it was a natural part of the story. And so Jesus gives Ben-Hur water in that scene. When nobody else would give him water, Jesus gives Ben-Hur water. And what makes that scene powerful is there's 3 or 4 different points throughout the movie where Ben-Hur refers back to that. Yes. It's powerful because in Ben-Hur's greatest thirst there, he hasn't let that go. Which then when Jesus is being crucified at the end and Ben-Hur recognizes Jesus' face, which we still don't get to see. In the old one. Yeah, in the old one, the compulsion he has to get Jesus that water, you feel it. And there was less of that in this one. Yeah. Now, if you hadn't seen the 1959 version, you might have felt that. You might have. That did happen again where, But they show Jesus' face, which I thought was less powerful. Yeah, and in the one with Charlton Hester's like, I know that man. Wait, he gave me water. So then he's like, has this drive. I have to give him water too. Yeah. And so in the new one though, Jesus gives him water, which was a good scene. Yeah. But then in the one where he's like, he knew who he was, and it didn't feel like it wasn't as powerful as it was in the one from 1959. Yeah. It was still a good scene, and honestly, people might think it's powerful that have not seen Charlton Heston's version. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, we can't be the ones to tell you if it would be or not because we saw the original. It's interesting, in trying to separate it, I liked you never saw Jesus' face in the original. I thought it had this air of mystery and reverence that it added to the character. But even Jesus having lines, the actor who played Jesus in this movie, he did a good job. Yeah. The lines that they gave Jesus and things like that, I thought actually were pretty good, and they worked for this movie. Back in 1959, it was interesting because you could see the difference between the 1950s and 2016. Of course. In 1959, Ben-Hur never once struggled with his faith. What he struggled with was hatred and vengeance and trying to reconcile that with his faith and his drive to get vengeance, knowing that's not what his faith called for, knowing that he was supposed to forgive, but he struggled with that. In this movie, this is how it reflects our modern times because of these things. He was rejecting the idea of God. It was still powerful, though, because they had the same kind of faith journey where they had to come to reconcile this internal struggle with what was going on. And so in the way they both reconciled it in both movies at the cross was actually both kind of powerful. Yeah. I say kind of because the 1959 one was totally powerful. Yes. This one... I felt like this one pulled the punch.
if you're not super familiar with the Christian faith, you're going to see these things and be like, well, this doesn't make sense. Like the mom and sister being healed of leprosy. You're like, well, why? What happened?
Yeah.
And, a lot of things that kind of turned around during the crucifixion. And you're just like, well, that doesn't make sense. And like in the new one, my biggest issue with it is the mom and sister never knew who Jesus was. They were locked up the entire time. Whereas in the old one, Ben-hur and Esther, his wife, tried to take them to him, and they heard his story, and they heard about his love, and they heard like his
the miracles.
Yeah, they heard about the miracles and his sermons and all those things. So these people, they were getting healed, and
plus in the old one, again, hard time separating the two. In the old one, the reveal of the mom and sister not only still being alive, which was a huge reveal, but the reveal that they had leprosy on top of it, it was a big, impactful moment. When Ben-hur finds out, it was a big, impactful moment. When Ben-hur picks them up, where leprosy is so contagious.
He would have it.
Yes. I mean, these are big moments. In this movie, they rushed it.
Yeah.
They had one line, we have leprosy, and then he goes out of the cell and he goes to get his vengeance, and then the whole cross stuff happens.
And then there's water that comes through the roof and it touches them, and they're like, we don't have it anymore. And that's it. And you're like, okay.
Whereas the 59 version gave you more of a connection between the Hur family and Jesus, so that when the rain comes, when Jesus dies on the cross, you get the symbolic impact of that it's a healing rain, it's a cleansing rain. Whereas in this one, I don't feel like you got it because they rushed it. Yeah. They really quickly, one time, gave you the reveal that they're alive and they had leprosy super fast. And because it was so fast, the emotion of it wasn't there. And then you see them one other time, and that's when it's raining and they're healed.
So really what I think happened is they were afraid to give you all of that in the movie because it's a hard subject to talk on. And whereas Ben-hur from 1959... It's hard,
and they didn't want it to be 3 hours.
They didn't want it to be 3 hours. They didn't want to seem super preachy, and which I appreciate, honestly.
Yeah, but Ben-hur wasn't... The old one wasn't preachy.
No, the old one wasn't preachy.
Yeah, they kept it in the story, and it worked.
It was really good. Whereas this one, they were kind of putting it into the story towards the end, more so. And therefore, they held back some of the punches they could have done, and they could have, kind of intertwined it better into the story, which would have made it much more impactful.
Yeah. And something that was kind of impactful in the original, Masala actually dies from his injuries in the horse race.
Yes, he does.
And that's where Ben-hur realized when he watched his enemy die that vengeance did nothing for him.
Yeah.
And you have this movie, it was a different impact. Masala actually lives. He loses a leg, but he lives, but they reconcile. And I thought that was actually a really good emotional moment.
Yeah.
But
because he went to forgive him because he realized hatred and vengeance was what was ruling him. And it's really about love.
But then I think even if you've never seen the 1959 version, I still think you're going to watch the mom and sister part, and you're not going to feel the power of that. You're not going to feel the power of them being healed from leprosy. Because my mom and sister are out visiting, and my sister didn't even catch that they had leprosy. Yeah. That's how quick the line is that they say that they have leprosy. It's kind of fast. And so it's like, really? And so, for me, those were some very powerful moments, and I just felt like they pulled the punch because they were trying to wrap things up, which is fine. But at the same time, if you just added another 10 or 15 minutes to the end of this and really kind of fleshed that out. It would have tied
out all the characters, and you would have liked the rest of the characters.
And it still would have been way less than 3 hours and 47 minutes and not preachy and good just because of the way the story can go. So in the end, I did give this movie 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was good. Separating it from the original, it had a lot of great moments. It had some powerful moments. It had good character development. But even separating it from the original, things felt rushed.
I'd give it 3 out of 5 stars as well. I enjoyed it. And so that's why it gets the 3 stars right out the bat. Because if I had a good time and I was entertained the entire movie. But I don't want to own it. I had a good time with it. Maybe watch it one day in the future around Easter. But other than that, it was a great... I've seen it and I feel like I'm good. I don't need to see it again.
If you saw Ben-hur, what were your feelings on this movie? Let us know in the comments. Did you like it? Did you not like it? While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, be on top of all the new videos and reviews and, reading way too much intos and all the stuff coming out here on Durbania. And hit like on this video if you liked it. I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
Thank you so much for checking out Durbania.